It's 105.9 The Rock, Nashville's classic rock. It's Battle, and tonight there is a big show going on at Geodis Park. You've heard us talking about it all week. I've even been telling you that I'm going to have a special guest in the studio, and he is literally right here in front of me, a man that you're going to be hearing performing tonight. William Patrick Corgan joined the show. Sir, how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm still reeling with the idea that you dressed up as a giant piece of dookie going to unsuspecting front doors. I'm still processing that.
I mean, you should see the videos. We recorded all of them. We posted it up on the internet, so they're on our Instagram. If you want to see those, I'll show some after this. A lot of
clicks.
Yeah, it's been very interesting. But first and foremost, before we get into anything, any business, I want to say congratulations. I saw the news. You got another one on the way.
Yeah, number 3.
Number 3. How excited are you?
Pretty excited. You know, I was 48 when my wife birthed our first child. So before I met her, I'd pretty much given up on the idea of having a family. Not because I didn't want one. I just couldn't find the right situation. So to be here together 12 years later, we're married, we have 2 kids and another one away. It's amazing. I mean, it certainly makes the case for if you have faith, like anything can happen.
Absolutely. Now, are the kids going to be interested in music, wrestling? Are you going to try to get a whole big thing with them?
Oh, no, they, when we do NWA stuff, they come to the show. So they know a lot of the wrestlers. It's hard for them because they'll see the wrestlers on TV, but in their minds, it's like their friend.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, that's my friend Tyrus. That's how they think, you know? So it's hard for them to get into the storyline part of it all.
Yeah.
And then when they come on tour, they perform on stage with us. So my wife and I have gone out of our way to always make them feel like whatever we're doing professionally, they're a part of that.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, we always tell them, you know, whatever you want to do with your life, we're here to support you. But
yeah,
they obviously have very interesting experiences that are outside the norm.
Right, because I mean, they one day it's wrestling, the other day it's music. So it's like you said. I mean, it's got to be a cool moment as a dad to have these moments with your kids.
Well, we rolled up on MetLife Stadium not too long ago in New York, where the Mets play, and my kids were in the back seat, and they go, "How many people are going to be here today?" I go, "Oh, about 45,000," and they just don't even bat an eyelash. And then 2 hours later, they're on stage dancing in front of 45,000 people. So it's very. I didn't have that growing up.
Yeah, it's kind of my kids are the same way. I've got 2 as well. I've got a 16 and a 7-year-old. So my 7-year-old gets into everything. My 16-year-old he's too cool for school. He doesn't want to do anything that dad does. But going to those things, it's such a cool moment.
Well, you should dress him up as Junior Dookie Jr.
I thought about that.
That would be good.
Like kind
of go to work with dad.
Right. Exactly. So let's talk about it. Of course, you guys are on tour with Green Day and Rancid and the Linda Lindas that play in Geodis Park tonight. But, you know, the Pumpkins have always defied conventional music trends, right? How do you balance maintaining your artistic integrity with the expectation of a fan base that spans generations?
It's impossible. And I would add to that the expectations of the music business, because the music business, once you reach a certain amount of time in the music business, they just assume, okay, that's what you do. Like, you're this type of band. So when you do something that's outside their mental concept of who you are, that becomes a problem.
Mm-hmm.
We've always led with the idea that if we believe in what we're doing, it'll all sort of work out. And it kind of has over time. Our path has been pretty unusual. I don't think it's a boast. I mean, you could argue it's a problem, but our path in music is almost like not like any other path of any other band, especially over this span of time. I mean, you're talking about 35, 36 years. And, you know, when we made this new album, Agori Mori May, we decided to kind of go back to our old school way of making music and more guitar focused. And it's almost like people are like, oh my God, oh, you can still do that. And it's like, no, we could always do that. We just chose not to for various lengths of time. So it's cool and that we have a little bit of wind at our back for a change, and people seem to like what we're doing at the moment. But you know, it doesn't mean the next album we wouldn't decide to do something completely different. It's just not what's kept us motivated. And I think, like I said, over 36 years, it's kind of worked for us.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, given our streaming numbers and where the band is publicly right now, I guess that you could argue it's also worked that way too.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, you've been vocal before about the impact of streaming on the music industry.
Mm.
If you could redesign like the music business model from scratch, what key changes would you like implement to benefit
what
artists?
What a great question. I would like to see, and I'm working on trying to set up my own record label, but I would like to see something more akin to what Tony Wilson did with Factory Records, which was the label most notably that put out Joy Division back in the day in New Order. And Jack Bates, his dad, played in New Order, in Joy Division. So he literally grew up in that business model, which is that the partnership between a label and artist is a 50-50 partnership. I think that's the best upside for everybody involved. That avoids Taylor Swift being mad about what happened here in town with her former label. You know what I'm saying? You get down to like everybody's kind of got the same skin in the game.
Right.
The old model, which is still very much the model, is, hey, you're lucky that we are interested in you. We're going to completely exploit you. And then if you're successful enough, well, we'll work out the level of exploitation going forward. Creates a lot of bitterness in the business. People who do have legitimate moments, even if they're a couple years, they don't really get paid what they're due for the moment they created. And I think the music business as a whole would benefit from a partnership model. The chance of it happening is probably less than 5% because labels just assume, very much like the NFL or something, you're only going to be around for a couple years. So if you get lucky, we want to take advantage of you getting lucky.
Right, for sure. And this weekend, man, it's a very busy weekend. We were talking off the air.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you've got the show tonight at Geodis Park. Then you got to hop on a bus to get to Philadelphia because you got NWA in Philly this weekend. And in your journey with the NWA, now is my time where I also get to geek out and talk about wrestling on a music
We love
show
to talk
as well.
about wrestling here. I've been in this chair talking about wrestling before. I'm having a flashback.
Yes. How do you see the role of wrestling involving in like the broader landscape of entertainment, especially in an era dominated by streaming and instant content?
Again, a great question. I think there were those years between, let's say, the mid 40s and maybe up until about 10 years ago, where wrestling's place in the culture was very much kind of an almost embarrassed, yeah, and there's wrestling too. It was stuck over there in the corner with roller derby. And yet over those 70 years, you saw the rise of the NFL, the rise of the NBA. Heck, now we see the rise of the WNBA.
Right.
And I think it was very hard for many people in the wrestling business, because they're obviously very gifted athletes, to not get that same kind of street respect as another great athlete. Yes, they're entertainers, and we all understand that part of the business. I think since you've seen the sale of WWE to WME, which also owns UFC, I think you're going to see now wrestling finally enter the core mainstream of entertainment. It'll be up there with Broadway theater and everything else. It's something that's obviously very popular, generates a lot of money for whatever partners that it has. And I think it'll also sort of attract more talent. So I think wrestling's best days are ahead. And I love the era that I grew up in. I think it was a fantastic time for professional wrestling. But I think what's to come, and when you see what WWE is able to do with 80,000 people in a stadium for WrestleMania and all that stuff, that's why I bought the NWA, because I saw a lane by which we could not only bring the NWA back, but also grow as a business. And all my meetings were, whether I'm talking to top networks, big agents in the sports field, my pitch is always the same. It's a mainstream product. It's meant to be a mainstream product. I know it's very trendy right now for wrestling to be treated as a niche product. Like a smaller and smaller fan base pays more and more to watch a very specific kind of wrestling. And I get that. It's very similar to the dynamics of independent music, where a band has a weird mustache and a bunch of people like them and they can't really write hit songs, but everyone says how great it is. Well, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I came out of the independent market as myself, but we all understand the biggest movies are about the most people going. The biggest wrestling events are about the most people going. So what does that tell you? You have to find a product that reaches everything from a 5-year-old kid who gets what they're watching at the most fundamental levels, and then in my case, sitting next to an 81-year-old Belgian woman who didn't even speak English, but who liked professional wrestling. Yeah. I think that's when wrestling's at its best. So the best times are to come. And to your question about streaming is perfect for wrestling. Yeah. Digital. We've seen a lot of growth lately in the NWA. We just started putting up just matches. No context, just put up a match. And our streaming numbers have gone back up. So what does that tell you? People only want to watch what they want to watch when they want to watch it. They don't necessarily want to sit for a whole show. Right. Doesn't mean I don't want them to watch the whole show. But a lot of people, they don't have time and they're on a bus. They want to watch one match. Boom, they watch one match that you're offering them. So
Right. And that's the great thing about, like you said, about wrestling right now and the whole streaming thing. It's like, if I'm sitting there and I can't watch, the NWA show when it gets put out on the CW app, I could watch it on a Saturday morning, or I could watch it Sunday evening after I put the kids to bed.
oh, I mean, it's fantastic for that. But again, I was, look, there's a lot of talk in the entertainment business about the influence of TikTok and how it's, somebody told me yesterday, somebody who's a huge YouTube person, I don't want to say the name, but they said that when they do short YouTube, like shorts for like Instagram or TikTok, 35 seconds is the perfect time.
Yeah.
That's the level of attention you can get from somebody. 35 seconds before they scroll on to something else. I mean, so are we down to 35-second matches? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know what I'm going to do with that.
You ring the bell and that's it.
But that's real information.
Yeah.
So, but we see it now. I don't know if you're an NFL fan, I would assume, being here with an NFL team. I've gotten very used to, I don't really watch the NFL anymore, but if there's a game I'm sort of interested in, like we have the new quarterback in Chicago, I'll watch that thing the NFL puts together. That was like basically a 6-8 minute highlight, but they just show all the top plays. It's perfect.
Yeah.
I'm watching the product. I get a chance to see my team, the Bears, how they're playing. And then it's, instead of 3 hours and 8,000 beer commercials later, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I get those other 2.5 hours of my life back.
Yeah, and you can do other things like, writing songs or whatnot.
Oh, yeah. How about, like standing in the sunshine or breathing oxygen. Yeah.
Right. Which kind of leads me to my next question, because the Smashing Pumpkins sound has always been deeply introspective. As a songwriter, how do you channel your personal experiences into music while still allowing space for listeners to interpret and find their own meanings in your songs?
As strange as it sounds, the more personal my songs are, traditionally, the more people seem to find themselves in it. If I write kind of a vague song, there seems to be no connection. If I write something that's very, as we call in wrestling, me, that's when people seem to want to get married to the song and have their kid born to the song. I know it's strange to me because I feel a lot of the songs that people have connected with through the years are super personal, but I don't know how that works. It's a mystery to me.
Yeah, it's going to be one of those things, because it is interesting when people connect to those songs, especially if it's on a whole different level. Like you said, like if you wrote it for your personal experience, but they're like, hey, I'm going to interpret it for this.
Well, and then there's the whole thing of misheard lyrics. My diction isn't so great when I sing. So, I mean, it's amazing the misheard lyrics through the years. So you get that too. Like they've convinced themselves that there's a line in a song that isn't the one you're singing, but that's the one they believe in.
Yeah.
So, and they come up and tell you like, oh, I love that line. You're like,
you don't want to break their heart.
The all-time one though was, it's a slightly different topic, but a guy came up and said, I got a tattoo. My favorite lyric of yours of all time, I got a tattoo, and he lifted up his sleeve, and one of the words was misspelled.
Oh, no.
It was like one of those I before E, like conceive or receive. And I was just like, I can't be the guy to tell him this.
You're just like, that's a great tattoo, man.
That's all I said. I was like, oh, thanks, bro.
Oh, man. Poor guy.
There was, I don't know if it still exists, but for a while there was a site, Pumpkins Tattoos, where it was just thousands of tattoos of pumpkins related.
I mean, that's got to show like something really cool to the test of time with everything that you guys have done, of just like, you have a page dedicated to tattoos of the Pumpkins.
Well, yeah. People would want me to sign them. And then, I thought it was kind of cool. And then one day I was like, oh, this is wrong. Like, I got to stop doing this. So I stopped doing that. But yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting what people, it'll be a small symbol from an album that they connect with. It'll be sometimes the band's logo. Usually it's my handwriting. So it's weird. I'll see my handwriting like on somebody's body. Yeah, there's other stories there I can't tell than about women and tattoos. But let's just leave it right there.
We'll just leave it right there. Of course, our guest in studio right now, William Patrick Corgan. The Smashing Pumpkins are playing tonight with Green Day at Geodis Park. And, as someone who has succeeded in both music and wrestling industries, what parallels do you see between crafting a compelling narrative in a song and building a creative storyline in wrestling?
Another good question. I could give you kind of a highfalutin answer, but it doesn't really apply. The closest parallel to wrestling and music for me are set lists. You know, you have a 2 to 3 hour event. How do you pace that event so that people feel that what they're watching sort of has an unfolding narrative, even though it's just a series of matches, which is the same as a set list, right?
Mm-hmm.
What do a series of songs tell people about who you are as a band? So, for example, anybody coming to the show tonight, we start with "Everlasting Gaze," which was, you know, a moderate hit on our last record of the '90s, and then we play a song from Zeitgeist, which came out in 2007, which was a very controversial record at the time, but most of the audience, of course, won't know the song. And then the third song, we do a U2 cover, which is a somewhat obscure U2 song, not a
Mm-hmm.
big hit. So people would say, why would you open your show with the first three songs? You know, sort of, but that's the story that we want to tell. You know,
Right.
we usually start dark and then kind of move to light. Um, and not everybody agrees with that set list philosophy. Some people believe you should come out with a bang and hit and everybody cheering, and I'm like, but there's only one way to go from there, which is down.
Right.
So you have to have confidence to tell a story. So same thing with matches, right? You got to have this confidence that, you know, some of the early matches can tell a story that will get the audience excited about what's still to come,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to just like looking at their watch saying, okay,
They're
I
like,
get
hey,
it, but like, let's move on to the next thing. So that's a big thing with NWA, as you know. Storytelling is a huge part of what we do.
absolutely. And it's been some of the great storytelling. And it's awesome because here on this show, like we're a music driven show, but I also am a big wrestling nerd, as nobody that's listening to this right now can see. But behind me, I have one of the most prestigious titles in all of wrestling sitting back here behind me.
The 10 pounds of gold. That's it.
The 10 pounds of gold. When you see that thing, that is the championship belt of all of wrestling. I'll just go ahead and say that. And you could fight me for that. Whoever's listening to this right now.
So interrupt you. What's cool is, you know, that the lineage of that belt goes back directly, you know, over 76 years.
Mm-hmm.
So when you know, right now EC3 has the belt. When you have that belt, I mean, you have a direct link back through, you know, some of the greatest talents in wrestling history.
Yeah.
So there's no getting around that, right?
No.
I mean, that's a real tangible thing in a business where there's not a lot of reality.
No, and you look at it, and it's like you said. I mean, EC3, Tyrus, Nick Aldis, Harley Race, Ric Flair. I mean, the list goes on, and whoever has
even
that
Adam
title.
Adam Pearce, who, you know, is now, I saw recently, he's talking about having another match, and I think it's been over 10 years or so that since he's had a match, and incredibly talented person. So that'd be interesting too, because, you know, his lineage is through the NWA title.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how he made his name.
Absolutely. And I mean, the NWA, when you think of wrestling, it's synonymous with wrestling. NWA is it? Because I remember growing up watching NWA at the fairgrounds here down the street in Nashville. And every Saturday night.
This is definitely an NWA town. For
yes,
sure.
Absolutely. So hopefully, you know, we can get another NWA show back here in Nashville. But
you know what it is? It's so crowded. You know, we like running the fairgrounds, but every time we call for a date, they're like booked. And so I don't know. If anybody's listening, you know, somebody at the fairgrounds, I mean, we need an in over there, because literally every time we've called with a date, just booked. I don't know if they're booked 2 years out, or.
I think we could work around. I know some people over there. We can make some calls.
I'd appreciate that. Yeah, because we love running Nashville. I mean, had some great shows here. And for a while, we were doing our TV here as well at Skyway.
Right, for sure. And that's a great place as well to do some stuff. But, you know, we're here talking about music, wrestling, and everything in between. And you've often spoke about the importance of the authenticity in your work in today's culture. And we briefly talked about this.
Is there anything authentic in today's culture?
Of quick fame and viral moments. How do you stay grounded and true to your long-term vision, whether it's with the Pumpkins or the NWA?
Well, to be blunt about it, I've always taken the position, and my father was this way too, so maybe it runs in the family, but it's something along the lines of this. When you see everyone run to one side of a room, right? Well, that's going to leave a lot of space on the other side of the room for something completely different. So I don't know. I don't know what would make people run to a corner of a room. Oh my God, it's a super famous person. Okay. Well, I'm the type of person that isn't going to run to that corner. I'm the type of person that's going to hold back and say, do I care? And then at some point I'm going to turn around and say, well, what's going on in the other direction? So I think you have to provide a counter narrative thing that has just as much value. Coming from independent music, and if everybody remembers in the late 80s, you had early glimpses of what was coming with Guns N' Roses and then Soundgarden and then ultimately bands like Nirvana to kind of break through what was but if everybody remembers the 80s, especially late 80s, I mean, there's a lot of hair metal and a lot of great hair metal bands, which I still like, but they'd all fall into that thing where everybody was doing the soppy ballad.
Mhm.
I'm on the road and I've run out of hairspray and all those songs.
Right.
And then and then you had, Janet Jackson was a hugely dominant pop artist. It was all about dancing and, like a lot of stuff which I wasn't particularly interested as a music fan, even though I loved her music. I thought her production was always great and all that stuff. So when you try to create something that's counter to that, it's not just like okay, well, we're going to go over here in the other corner, we're going to make a big racket and that competes. No, what you have to do is you have to present something of a higher sense of inner integrity. So if everybody on the other side of the street in 2024 is plastic surgeryed out, filtered out, God knows what they're running their voices through, all that stuff that everybody does so everybody seems perfect and all from the same alien laboratory.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when a kid turns around and looks at that other corner of the room, they need to be somebody that's completely opposite that.
Yeah.
So you get into crooked teeth and not perfect people, and they go, well, why are they standing there?
Mm-hmm.
And that's where being a Deadly live band has always worked for us, and really just not giving a what about what people think. If you're 15 years old or you're 25 years old and you feel a bit lost in this current culture, and we know statistically that many, many people do. Well, that's why bands like us with Green Day, and all credit to Green Day, it's their show, are able to sell a stadium full of people. And by the way, the audiences that we're looking are very, very young.
Mm-hmm.
I would say the average audience on this tour is probably somewhere in the mid-20s.
Yeah.
Not like the audience you would assume, which is like old Gen X people coming out for one more round because it's a couple 90s or 3 90s bands.
Right.
No, it's very young. So what does that tell you? They want something that feels a little bit more gritty and a little bit more real. And if you look at Green Day, who they are as people, they're not perfect. I don't think they would tell you they're perfect. We're certainly not perfect. Rancid, certainly not perfect people, but we're all ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And when you put all those people together, it's not, you like, okay, we are that other side of the room.
Yeah.
It's not for everybody, but it's enough, right?
Yeah, and that's a great analogy. And of course, you're going to be able to see all that tonight, Geodis Park. You can still grab tickets, Ticketmaster.com, and I think we actually have a pair that we'll give away as well during the show as well.
Do I have to wear the Dookie suit though?
You don't have to wear the Dookie suit, but here's what we'll do: is I will wear the Dookie suit, and I will take a clothesline from EC3 on stage if he's around. We'll do that.
I like that.
We'll make viral news that way on this little quick 35-second clip.
We have to bring in a worker just to closesline you.
I mean, Alex Taylor can do it. I mean, he can do it. He lives here.
That's true.
Plunkett.
Plunky would definitely put you to sleep.
We'll talk about that after the air. We'll figure this out. But last question before we let you go, and I always like to kind of get people's thoughts on this. Recently, I had Slash on the show. We talked about this. Over the past year or so, AI technology has kind of gotten really bigger. A lot of people using that. A lot of people using AI technology in music. What are your thoughts on AI technology being used in the music creating process?
You want the short answer and the long answer?
Whichever answer you'd like to give.
I don't want to bore your great listeners, so you tell me.
Hey, give them the long answer. Everybody, I would love to hear from the musician, the guy that sits there and goes through the process.
We'll start here. AI is not going anywhere. So the debate over it, as far as whether or not it's going to be part of the music business, that's already over. Somebody recently in the Nashville, I almost said NWA, the Nashville circles told me that AI is being used in almost every writing session in Nashville now, and has been for years.
Wow.
So it's here.
Yeah.
Right? Now, let's hit pause on that. Every time there's been a major technological advancement in the history of music, it yields a new type of music. You could say it's good or bad, but it does something. Heck, the invention of electric guitar, basically by Les Paul, in terms of what everybody would understand, the modern electric guitar. Well, that ushered in people going, Well, now they can hear me in the back of the room, and Muddy Waters turning all the way up and distorting his guitar, and Link Ray slashing, his speaker with razor blades so it sounded more cool and distorted. So it gets into, like, let's call it the ethics of what you're going to do with that technology. So let's start from the bad side. What we've seen over the last 20 plus years with Pro Tools is there are a bunch of people in the music market who have no business being in the music market. Now, you can argue, hey, who cares? If they came up with the right beat, the right rap, the right chord changes, the right song, however beautiful, silly, if they get it done and they get a song on the charts, well, more power to them. It's a capitalist society and you should do it. But what you end up doing is you sort of end up muddying the water where it's really hard to tell who are artists with real ability and we're going to be in your life for the next 30 or 40 years, or somebody that's just having a little bit of a moment. And so what it does is kind of smears the culture around where everything kind of feels almost less than what it should be, because you're not really looking at a whole group of people of accomplishment. You're looking at basically a high school photo.
Mm-hmm.
If you've ever looked at a high school photo 20 years later and you go, well, that one didn't turn out so good. And so that's
Right.
what you're looking at now in popular music. You're looking at a high school photo where probably 80%, 90% of the people in the photo, you won't even remember their name. Heck, not 10 years from now, maybe even a year from now.
Yeah.
So think of the message that sends to young people. It's good to cheat. It's good to be a fraud. It's good to do whatever you got to do to be successful. Let's call it the American Idol model.
Mm-hmm.
What do I got to say? What knees do I need to be on in front of to prostrate myself so you'll give me the magical wand of fame? Now to the ethical part of it. A very famous person in the tech industry came up to me approximately 7 years ago and told me that this technology was coming and offered me an early version of it.
Mm-hmm.
And said, basically all of music history had been analyzed, and this machine would tell me what chords to play that would give me the greatest advantage with you as a listener, what beat to play, what tempo, what key to play in, to basically game the system so I'd have a better chance of reaching you as a person listening.
That is scary to think about.
Okay. And I've known this person a long time, and somebody I'm friendly with, and they thought they were doing me a favor. Like, hey, hey, I'm going to give you this technology,
Right.
And I told him, no, I don't want it. And he couldn't believe that I didn't want it. And I said, I'm not interested. I said, my whole life is standing on a stage playing my music, and that's just the way it is. And if that means that I'm not going to be good enough, well, that means I'm not going to be good enough. 10 years from now, I might be standing on a stage somewhere, a much smaller stage than the one I'm standing on, and the new alternative musicians of the world, they might be all AI this and AI that, and the audience just won't care because it's just the new version of the new thing. I don't want to be a Luddite and wave a flag. I believe, and I'm a spiritual person. If you believe in God like I do, if God gives you a talent and then you want to cheat with that talent, then why did God give you that talent? Like, the journey is ultimately inauthentic.
Yeah.
And I like to believe in the theory that when I lay my head on my pillow, it's a pillow I bought with my own money, with my own work, not because I was able to cheat my way forward. Last thing, we know that young people are totally going to cheat their way forward.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, if it's not a filter on Instagram, it's going to be AI telling them what to sing and play. And so I think pretty quickly we're all going to have to make a kind of cultural decision of how we view, let's call it AI-inspired work. And I'll go one step further. Is everyone ready, including people that listen to the station? Are you ready to listen to artists that aren't real?
Yeah.
Because that's coming too. We recently saw it, and God bless, because we understand the situation, but Randy Travis, where they used AI to have his voice in a song, because obviously he can't sing. And it's a weird feeling, right? Because on one level, it's like you realize what a great talent he is, and what a crime it is that he's in this situation where he's not able to sing at the level that he was once able to. So there's like a familiarity, there's a tug on the heartstrings, and at the same time, it's not real.
Yeah.
So are you ready for a whole generation of that?
Man. It's scary to think about.
Are you ready? Are you ready as a let's call it a rock fan? Your friend goes, "Hey, did you hear the new the new record by the Water Bottles?"
Mhm.
No. Oh my God, this is great. Let's go see them live. You're watching the band live on stage, and you're like, okay, this is not bad. And then your friend turns, you goes, by the way, that recording, that was all AI. This is just the band they sent on tour
So
to play the songs, but the song that you like isn't real at all. Are you ready for that? Because that's coming for sure.
I don't think I'm ready for it. Just like I don't think I'm ready for the whole like hologram concert thing as well. Cause I remember like they did the Tupac thing years ago. There was the Dio talks of a hologram tour happening. I think recently they did like a Roy Orbison hologram tour that people were paying for.
I think, a hologram type of thing is fine for an amusement park. I don't think it'll ever work for the concert venue. I don't
Yeah.
think people are going to go to the Ryman and watch a hologram.
Yeah.
But they will go to the Ryman and watch a Hank Williams imitator.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And by the way, they pushed that on Hank Jr. when he was 8 years old.
Yeah.
Okay. That's the early version of what I'm talking about. Hey, there's a demand. And are you telling me they can't, like AI comes with, or they find a guy and they go, you're going to be the voice. We're the record company. We're going to do the AI record, but you're going to be the voice. Your voice will actually be on the record, but you won't actually sing.
Yeah.
It's here. I mean, that's what I mean. It's like something out of a bad 70s sci-fi movie, right?
Right.
Are we going to end up with it's like, remember there was the argument during when steroids were pervasive in baseball, and there were people literally saying, just let them do steroids.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what do we care? We want to see a 500-foot home run, right? I think you're going to have a crowd that's going to be like, I don't care. I like the music. I don't care who makes it. And are we going to have this weird thing where there's going to be an audience that's like GMO foods? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
Right.
I refuse to listen to AI music. The line will be impossible to ascertain because almost every popular artist will be using some form of AI
Mm-hmm.
to game the system. And then you're going to have these, and they've been doing it in Japan for I think over 10 years, where they have these anime bands where they're not even real.
Wow.
You know?
It's going to be interesting to see how music plays out in the future. No pun intended there. But
well, it all goes with the biblical end of the world, you see. So
yeah,
we're right on point there.
We're getting there. Well, it's been an honor and a privilege to have you sitting here in studio with us. Can't wait for the show tonight. Before we let you go, is there anything you want to say to all of Nashville right now that's listening to this?
Every time I come here, I've spent a lot of time here. For people who don't know, we recorded a lot of our new album here in Nashville at Blackbird. We love working at Blackbird. Great family, obviously, runs the studio, the McBrides. And in many ways, we used to do a lot of our recording in LA back in the day, in the 90s. So Nashville has become our new musical home outside of Chicago. So every time I come here, I feel like I'm home because this is where I do a lot of work now. And
Right.
what I always tell people, because a lot of people ask me, because obviously I get around, they think about moving to Nashville, obviously the hottest city in America. And I always tell them, it's usually musicians asking me, I always say, the great thing about Nashville is there's still people there that play.
Yeah.
There are still people who are going to be out on a Thursday night in one of those bars playing. And that's what I love about Nashville, is there's still players here, because you won't really find it in LA anymore like it used to be. And I can't even imagine what goes on in New York anymore, other than, like, say, jazz. So this is the music city for America right now, and there really is no close second.